Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Fallout 4, but for the very first time to Fallout 4's new DLC, Far Harbor. And this video is going to be a guide in which I will show you how to acquire the unique harpoon gun, Admiral's friend. And of course, we will also run through its various mods and their pros and cons. To acquire this weapon, you will need the Far Harbor DLC installed. So the first thing we want to do is make our way to Far Harbor. And after you arrive and do whatever it is you do, we want to head to Alan's store. Once here, we want to talk to the merchant, Alan, and of course, head to barter. Now this is nice and easy. When we go across to weapons, we can see it right there, Admiral's friend. Now of course, the price of this weapon will vary depending on your character's charisma level. And while we're here, be sure to go across to ammunition and pick up as many harpoons as he is selling at the time. This won't be particularly cheap, but hey, harpoons never cheap. Now Alan's store, and more importantly Alan, can be found inside the town of Far Harbor. And if you have any issues finding this town, then you've got bigger issues than finding this unique weapon. Now before we take a look at Admiral's friend and mod it out and check out what it can do, as always I have reduced all of my character's special attribute stats to 1. I also have no bubblehead, perk, or magazine effects applied to my character. What this means is that we will be seeing the absolute minimum base stats of the weapon. Now we're going to be looking at 2 different modification combinations. First of all, we're going to be going with the flechettes, which as we can see change the ammo type to fire a shotgun blast of harpoon flechettes. Now although it says it changes the ammo type, it still uses the harpoon as ammunition, it just changes the projectiles of the weapon. Now because the flechettes has the shortest range, we're going to only be going with a sight instead of the short scope, because a sight is much more practical for downside aiming. And of course with a shorter range, we're not going to be doing many long range shots. Therefore we do not need the scope. So now that we've added these 2 modifications to the Admiral's friend, it has a base ballistic damage of 150, it uses the harpoon as ammunition, its fire rate is 2, its range is 95, its accuracy is 70, its weight is 17.6, and its value is 1050 caps. And up the top we can see there, Admiral's friend does double damage if the target is at full health. Not going to lie, that's a pretty powerful legendary effect. Now this modification also turns the 1 normal harpoon into 7 flechettes. 7. However, this spread of the flechettes is so minimal, this modification can't really be used to hit multiple enemies with 1 shot. And although the huge lack of spread means you cannot hit groups of enemies, it does make it much more likely that all 7 harpoons will hit the 1 target you're firing at. Now judging from my experience and experimentation, the base damage of 150 is split between all 7 flechettes fired. So to get the full damage you will need to hit with all 7 flechettes. But again, that huge lack of spread does not make this a challenge whatsoever. Now, although this modification has the shortest range out of any of the choices, it's still not really a problem unless you're going for a really long shot. But if you walk into an area and there's enemies that populate that area, you'll probably be able to hit them, but you're not going to be doing any across-map sniping with this modification. But of course that means anything in short or medium range you'll have no problem, and you will have a lot of fun flechetting the shit out of your foes. However, if your aim's not too spot on, you do now have 7 times the chance of actually hitting the enemy because there's 7 flying Ramsey Boltons. So now let's look at the barbed harpoon modification. This changes the ammo type to a barbed harpoon that causes bleeding. And of course, once again, it doesn't actually change the ammunition type, it changes the projectile. Now because this barbed harpoon actually has a bit of a longer range, we will be adding the short scope modification, which of course improves magnification and has superior sighted accuracy. And don't forget, just because I'm using these modifications doesn't mean you have to. You can use whatever modification combination you wish. So now that we have the barbed harpoon modification and the short scope modification, let's take a look at its stats. It still has a base ballistic damage of 150, it still uses the harpoon as ammunition, its fire rate is still 2, its range has gone up from 95 to 119, the accuracy has increased from 70 to 79, its weight has also increased from 17.6 to 19.2, and its value has dropped 10 caps. Who knew? And of course, up the top, Admiral's friend does double damage if the target is at full health. Now with the scope, the increased range, and the increased accuracy, the barbed harpoon is a much more practical projectile for doing some one-on-one killing, especially because it adds that bleed damage. So if by some miracle your enemy happens to survive being shot, they will then slowly bleed to death. Now the lack of long-range ability that the flechettes modification had, the barbed harpoon makes up for it. Although downsighting for short-range shots is a little bit less practical because of the scope, medium to long-range shots are much more effective and accurate accurate. Not only is it easier to see what you're firing at, but it literally has a longer range capability. And if you do want to take full advantage of this weapon's legendary effect, doing double damage if the enemy is at full health, you do want to deliver the most accurate and devastating first shot. So although on technicalities the fléchette and the barbed harpoon are pretty much equally as good in different ways, I do think that the barbed harpoon is a little bit superior, taking into consideration the Admiral's Friend legendary effect. However, with that said, I do think that there are some better and more practical weapons that are better at delivering a one-hit wonder shot, which is what you would want to be doing with the Admiral's Friend, provided you had the barbed harpoon modification applied. A better weapon, for example, would be the Last Minute. So overall, some things we should know about the Admiral's Friend. It is classed as a heavy weapon, so of course its damage can be increased with the appropriate heavy weapon perks. After doing so, you can get its damage up to around 330. So with that kind of damage, delivering double damage if the target is at full health, even if you don't kill something straight away, you're definitely going to ruin its day. Regardless of what modifications you put on it and however those modifications are worded, it will still use the harpoon as ammunition. Also, regardless of what modification you use, it will have an ammunition capacity of 1. This is rather unfortunate because the reload times are between 4 and 5 seconds, so it's really not too practical during use in prolonged combat. Now the Admiral's Friend, or harpoon guns in general, share a lot of similarities with the railway rifle. The projectiles have a fly time, so outside of that you do have to compensate for where the enemy is going to be when you choose to fire. This can become an issue at long-range shots. When also taking into consideration its huge reload times, the Admiral's Friend is best used inside of VATS. And again, much like the railway rifle, the Admiral's Friend's harpoons or fléchettes have a chance of pinning crippled legs or heads to solid objects behind the target upon their death. A gruesome, goofy, and rather hilarious physical trait. So overall, once we boil all of this information down into our vat of knowledge, I would say that the combination of the barbed harpoon and the short scope is the best combination for the Admiral's Friend. Because of its huge reload times, you're pretty much only going to be using this inside of VATS, and the two previously mentioned mods increase its range and accuracy. So inside of VATS at short to medium ranges, it's going to perform exactly the same, but then it's going to perform better at long ranges. And of course, be much more likely to deliver that one fatal blow, provided your enemy is at full health. So not only is it the Admiral's Friend, but it's my friend, and your friend, and all of our friends, and it's got some benefits. After all, it does have poon. And here it is, the Admiral's Friend in action. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, there is my guide to the Admiral's Friend, the unique harpoon gun found in Fallout 4's new DLC, Far Harbor. If you did find this video helpful, please feel free to click on the playlist button on screen. This of course will take you directly to my Fallout 4 guides playlist, where you can select the videos you wish to watch freely. Or you can check in the description, where it will be frequently updated with links to new Fallout 4 guides. If you wish to remove despair from your life, please follow me on Twitter, the link will also be in the description. And with all that said, I would like to thank you very much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure as always, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there in a second.